The Rooms Where Truth Presses In, on Tennessee Williams and the Work of Being Seen, by Szoo Wilson. www.jillsoowilson.com. On a hot night in New Orleans, a woman steps into a narrow apartment carrying a suitcase that seems too heavy for what it holds. She pauses just inside the doorway, taking in the room with a kind of alert delicacy, as if the air itself might register her presence too quickly. Before anyone asks a question, she begins to speak. The sentences arrive shaped and careful, each one placed between herself and the world she has entered. "I don't want realism," Blanche Dubois says not long after. "I want magic." The line is often treated as confession or ornament, a moment that captures her fragility in a single phrase. It works differently on stage. It establishes a method. Blanche does not speak to describe reality. She speaks to manage it. Language becomes the surface she can still control, even as the conditions around her begin to shift. This is where Tennessee Williams places his audience. Not at the point of discovery, but inside a room where something is already known, already circulating, already shaping the behavior of everyone present. The tension does not come from what will be revealed. It comes from the effort required to keep that knowledge from settling fully into the space. In A Streetcar Named Desire, that effort organizes every exchange between Blanche and Stanley Kowalski. She expands, adjusts, softens. He narrows. He asks, presses, produces. When Stanley lays out the papers of Belle Reve, the moment lands without flourish. There is no rhetorical victory, no extended argument. The fact of the papers changes the room. Blanche continues speaking, but the ground beneath her language has shifted. The audience does not need to be told what is happening. It can be felt in the distance that opens between what she says and what the room now holds. Williams returns to this condition again and again, though the texture changes. In the Glass Menagerie, the room is quieter, almost suspended. Amanda Wingfield sits at the table and begins to describe her youth, the gentlemen callers, the afternoons that seem to promise a future she still attempts to extend into the present. The story arrives polished, complete, ready to be believed. For a moment, it reshapes the apartment. The past becomes available again, not as memory, but as something that might still organize the life. Across from her, Laura remains still. Tom watches, listening and not listening at the same time. The story continues. It always continues. When it ends, nothing in the room has actually changed. Amanda begins again. The effect is cumulative rather than dramatic. Each telling reinforces the distance between the life that is spoken and the one that is lived. The audience begins to track that distance, to hear the effort in the repetition. Amanda is not deceiving in any simple sense. She is maintaining a structure that allows her to proceed. In Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the structure gives way to something more direct. The room is fuller, louder, more openly confrontational. Brick Pollitt lies on the bed, his leg broken, his body angled away from the others. Around him, the conversation continues. Maggie talks, circles, tries again. Big Daddy enters and begins to ask questions that do not permit easy deflection. Quote, "What is it that makes you so goddamn disgusted with yourself?" End quote. Brick answers, but the answers do not resolve the question. They reduce, redirect, and close down. The subject remains present, shaping every line that moves around it. The play does not build toward a moment in which the truth is finally spoken and understood. It builds pressure around the fact that it cannot be spoken about cleanly at all. What emerges across these plays is a distinct relationship between language and knowledge. Williams does not treat speech as a transparent medium. It carries weight, beauty, even urgency, yet it rarely stabilizes what it names. It reveals strain. It marks the point at which something begins to exceed articulation. That excess often appears first in the body. Stanley's presence in Streetcar organizes the space long before he asserts himself verbally. He moves through the apartment with a certainty that does not need explanation. The poker table fills, the room tightens, The air thickens. When he strikes Stella, the act does not read as escalation. It reads as something that has already been present, finding its form. What follows is harder to hold. Stella returns to him. The text does not justify the choice. It does not expand it into an argument or an explanation. It remains where it occurs, in the body, in the space between them. The audience is left to register what has happened without being guided toward a conclusion. Elsewhere, the body withdraws rather than asserts. Laura's movement through the Glass Menagerie defines her more clearly than any line she speaks. She handles the glass animals with care that borders on vigilance, as if contact itself might alter them irreparably. When Jim dances with her briefly, the shift is visible at once. The body responds before the language can follow. When the unicorn's horn breaks, Laura adapts the object with a single sentence, and the moment settles. Something has changed. The play does not insist on its meaning. Brick's stillness in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof creates a different kind of pressure. He does not withdraw from the room. He remains in it, yet refuses to participate on the terms being offered. Maggie moves toward him, speaks to him, tests the limits of his attention. He does not meet her. The distance between them becomes the central fact of the scene. It is held in space, not resolved in dialogue. For actors, these moments resist interpretation in the usual sense. The line cannot be treated as the primary unit of meaning. The work begins earlier, in the conditions that make the line necessary. What does the character need at this point? What are they attempting to secure or avoid? How does the body register what the language cannot fully carry? Blanche's speeches, for example, require precision rather than expansion. The language is already full. The actor's task lies in allowing it to respond to the shifting conditions of the scene. Stanley changes something. Mitch changes something. The room changes. Blanche adjusts. The movement occurs inside the line. Stanley, by contrast, depends on alignment with the space. His authority does not come from volume or intensity. It comes from the fact that he belongs to the world he occupies. When that alignment holds, very little needs to be added. Brick presents the opposite problem. The stillness must remain active. Silence cannot read as emptiness. It must carry what has not been said. The audience should sense the presence of that withheld material even when it is not articulated. Directors, working within these plays, face a similar demand for restraint. The environments Williams creates do not need amplification. The Kowalski apartment, the Wingfield home, and the Paulet bedroom already contain the conditions necessary for tension to emerge. The work lies in allowing these conditions to register clearly. Proximity matters. Movement matters. What cannot be escaped matters. This is why Williams' plays continue to feel immediate, even as their settings recede into another time. They do not depend on surprise. They depend on recognition. The audience is asked to remain in the room long enough to feel the pressure build, to notice the distance between what is said and what is known, to register the point at which language begins to give way. The truth in these plays does not arrive, it presses. For more theater essays, literary criticism, and original writing by Szoo Wilson, visit jillsoowilson.com.